Gulf State of Bahrain has a long history of authoritarian government and political repression. In the Arab Spring of 2011, popular uprisings were crushed with the support of the Saudi military, and there were widespread human rights violations by the Bahraini state. During and since this time, the UK government has provided security and justice training to institutions that are implicated in severe abuses. It has also supported arms exports, despite Bahrain featuring on its own human rights watch list. Saeed Alwadaei is a Bahraini human rights activist who has suffered for speaking out against the dictatorship.
I was arrested as a result of speaking out to the media. I was subjected to physical torture. I was blindfolded. I was beaten randomly. That stage lasted for about 28 days, but then I was released, and then the chapter or the episode of a trial began, and that was through a military court. I was later sentenced. So following being released from the prison, I was even more determined to join the protest movement, and I continued to protest, to challenge the state that, you cannot really abuse our human rights. We want democracy. I do remember one thing which is important, that we were shot by tear gas and the state was repressing this protest movement. The tear gas canisters, we begin to collect them as hundreds of them from the street when we regained the position. What struck me the most is when you see those canisters where we were looking into this, made in the UK, made in the USA. It's not only Bahrain which is repressing us, it's also those states which provides them with the means to be able to do so.
Saeed's activism resulted in further threats to his safety, and he was forced to leave the country and claim political asylum in the UK. He has continued to speak out against the Bahraini authorities.
On 26th of October 2016, the King of Bahrain was in an official visit to Britain. As the King motorcade enters Downing Street, I thrown myself at his car, and as he shakes hands with Theresa May, I continued to scream and shout. As the police stopped me and arrested me, I continued to scream and shout, "Why you hosting dictator? Why you hosting killers?" And I thought that was causing the king massive embarrassment.
As a result of Saeed's actions that day, the Bahraini authorities targeted his family for reprisals. His wife and daughter were briefly detained and interrogated before managing to flee the country. 3 members of his wife's family were subsequently interrogated about his activism, tortured, and still remain in prison. Meanwhile, the UK government continues to justify its policy, stating that its aim is to help Bahrain to return to a stable and reformist state with a good human rights record, while protecting significant defence and security interests. We asked Saeed what he thinks about the UK's stance.
The British government is involved in every single sector of the cooperation, from the security cooperation and to being involved in what they call it initially a technical assistance program. This would include training judges, for instance, how to conduct investigations on torture, inspection in prisons and things like this, and they will show them the models in the UK and so on. And this package comes really from the British taxpayers' money. So Britain's role is pretty much really teaching the Bahrainis how to escape from the consequences of their human rights abuses. The human rights situation, it's at its worst time ever, and I think it's even worse than 2011. It's because those bodies which are supposed to be investigating torture, they were complicit in covering up the torture. The British government has shown us that there is no morality, there is no ethics when they conduct their business. When Britain, really its priority is to invest in arms industry and invest in wars and to support those wars despite how catastrophic it is on the civilian, on the citizens. Do you think this is going to bring any peace or prosperity to the world, or any stability, or even serve any national security? The government justifies or uses national security just as a banner or as just a reason to go far deeper with really shady deals with corrupt regimes. So in the past, up to 2016, we used to get information about the training program. And the more we were able to expose this and to bring it to the public, the more Britain is deciding to say, the British government is deciding to say, hey, we're not going to give you any information whatsoever. The British government is acting not just as a PR company for the Gulf regions, but acting as a PR company which does a better job than the dictators themselves. So they really should stop publicly endorsing those dictators. They should really put an end to arms sales. They should also stop really hiding behind national security to be transparent about the nature of this toxic relation.